Mr. Jenrick, welcome to Fix Radio. Thank you very much for joining us to talk about these matters that we're going to discuss. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about your name in the news as of the last few weeks, but something that struck a note with me is I've seen your concern in the wider world when it comes to tool theft, something so crucial and a huge problem in our industry. Now, when it comes to tool theft and your concern for it, where did that all come about? Where did that concern come from?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. Look, I've always been interested in this issue. At one stage when I was growing up, my dad was a gas fitter and started a small business out of a white van. And I remember what it was like when it was broken into, or when he then had a small unit and it was broken into in the middle of the night. And my mum and dad got the call when the alarm went off and had to go out and see what was happening. And the impact when things were nicked on their lives, our families' lives, was massive, because it's not a small crime. This is potentially losing your livelihood or having to massively cut back for days or weeks after, and letting down clients, your customers as well, who you care about and take professional pride in. And as a constituency MP in Newark in North Nottinghamshire, I have a lot of tradesmen who live in my area. And for years now, they've been raising with me these issues that their vans were being broken into, either at home on the drive or when they're out on jobs across the country, and the impact it was having, and the fact that the police weren't really taking this as seriously as it should do, as part of this broader set of so-called minor crimes, shoplifting, mobile phone theft, you name it, which almost seem to be occurring with impunity right now in the country. And then I was approached by some of the great campaigners that there now are in this space, like Schweb, the gas fitter, and got involved with them. And he took me to the first car boot sale that I've been to in a long time, where he showed me the vast array of tools, most of which were probably stolen, being sold in plain sight, and the fact that neither the police nor local councils and trading standards officers were doing anything about it was absolutely shocking to me. And so I got involved in the campaign and have played my part in trying to raise the profile of this with videos, going on the media, pushing the police, particularly the Met Police, Essex Police, to take action in the way they simply hadn't done before, with some success. And it's now become an ever more prominent national issue. It's something that politicians just would have turned their nose up at 6 months or a year ago, but now is part of the conversation. And we've seen raids by some police forces, like the Met, Hertfordshire and Essex, on those car boot sales, arrests being made, tools being seized, and some hopefully being returned to their owners. I want to see police forces across the country do exactly the same now.
Recently, we've heard the news that you've defected to the Reform Party from the Conservatives. Last year, we approached Reform on 5 separate occasions to come on to Fix Radio and discuss tool theft, among other issues affecting this industry that we obviously champion. They didn't respond. Are you worried at all that you've joined a party who might not share the same concern that you have when it comes to this matter?
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. But look, this isn't a party political issue, but I want Reform to be, and I think it is, the party of sole traders, small business people, people who are out there working very hard in the real world. And if I can play my part in making sure that it's taking up these issues, then of course I certainly will do, because if Reform is on the side of anyone, frankly, it is on the side of people like tradesmen and women across the country. It's just, that's its DNA, really. That's the bedrock of the kind of Britain that we're there to support. Very hard-working people who are out there doing the best for their families, taking some personal risks with their own business, and we should be ensuring that crime is not holding them back.
The polls suggest Reform will do very well in the next election. Have you had any conversations with Nigel Farage about what your role will be in the Reform government, or what it would be? Have you had any of them conversations about how maybe that role can help this matter, this issue?
Well, I've chatted to him generally, but ultimately it's his decision, and he wants to set out quite soon, actually, the team that he's put together and what everyone's going to do. But I would like to keep fighting on this issue. I'm going to. I have no intention of backing down, and I'm going to keep visiting car boot sales, doing my kind of vigilante videos, and raising the profile of this issue. As I say, they tended to have a degree of success. Every time I've done them, I've then written to the police force, and a couple of weeks later they've gone and done a raid, arrested some people, seized some of the tools. And so it shows that you can shame the authorities into action, and you're not impotent as an MP. You don't just have to be down in Westminster asking questions, firing off letters, which sometimes doesn't have very much impact. You can get out and about across the country and push the authorities into doing the things that, frankly, they should have been doing a very long time ago. It still angers me that other police forces aren't doing this. I don't understand why every police force in the country isn't out there raiding their local car boot sales, making it impossible, really, to be selling tools in this way. It wouldn't end the problem completely, obviously, because they'll no doubt be sold, in pub car parks or other different ways. But we've got to close down this very, very visible way of selling them, which just makes you feel like the country is so unfair, because it feels like, how can you have your livelihood taken off you and then it just be being sold within complete impunity at a car boot sale. The other thing is, as you know, we've got to spread the message to tradesmen that they can play their part as well by marking their tools using the tech that's out there, like the DNA markers, so that if the police do take tools, they can actually work out that they're stolen and hopefully get them back to their owners. Because in fairness to the police, it is quite tough. Yes, most of the tools being sold in these settings are probably stolen, but it's quite hard to prove that. And the police now have a mountain of tools they've stolen, that they've seized, which they just can't return to anyone because they don't know who they are. So I'd really encourage anyone listening to this to take advantage of the tech that's out there, which isn't particularly expensive, and make sure that you mark your tools with the latest DNA technology.
If we were to see you as Justice Secretary, how would you achieve the best possible outcome to clamp down on this matter?
Well, look, I've been very clear that we can't live in a country where crimes are able to be committed with no sanction whatsoever. Having your mobile phone stolen, having your handbag stolen, shoplifting, tradesmen having their vans broken into and their tools stolen. So these crimes, which seem to be almost decriminalised at the moment, have got to be treated seriously by the police. That means that when they happen, the police should be turning up and investigating, acting when there's evidence like CCTV footage, which could lead to finding the perpetrators. And in many parts of the country, particularly places like where I represent, small towns, it's quite well known who are the people who are doing this. And then if you if you're convicted, you should go to jail. And that's a key point, because we've now reached a point where even prolific offenders of this kind of crime almost never go to prison. And the stats are very clear. More than 50% of all the crime in the country is being committed by about 8% of the criminals. So there's a group of career criminals who are doing this stuff, burglary, shoplifting, thefts like this, and they're getting away with it. And that's got to stop. And so I want to see a situation where not only are they being found by the police and prosecuted, but they're actually going to jail for it. That is the opposite of what the current government strategy is. They're getting rid of so-called short sentences, so it'd be almost impossible for you to go to jail for this sort of crime, because there'll be no prison sentences really, barring exceptional circumstances of 12 months or less. I want to change that, get these people off the street as a matter of public protection as well as punishment, so that there's real consequences for doing this kind of crime.
Going back a few years, you were Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government. So can I just get a word from you on what you think this country's support is currently at for the construction industry on the whole? Such a vital industry to the country's economy. A huge part of the population make up the industry, and it's something that at least one point in our lives we've had a dealing or involvement with someone who works in the industry, whether it's through a family member, a friend, or even just someone who works on someone's house. Now, this issue alone is something that's crippling to the industry, tool theft. But on the whole, there is a lot of problems and a lot of things that seem to get in the way and affect the industry and make it struggle rather than thrive. So on the whole, as a country, do we need to do more to support the construction industry, do you think?
Yeah, we really do. Look, it matters a lot to me. I became very passionate about it when I was Housing Secretary, brought in a whole range of different reforms to the planning system, particularly aimed at smaller builders. Things called permitted development rights, which enabled you to add an extra store to your house, create a granny annex, expand your house to a modest degree, knock down a derelict building and turn it into something else, turn a vacant shop into a home, those sorts of things, all without requiring planning permission. So you didn't have to waste a load of time going through the bureaucracy of the system. We need to do more things like that so that small builders, tradespeople, entrepreneurs can get on, create homes, create businesses, and earn a living without being constrained by the regulation and the state. More broadly, we need to be building more homes. You know, there's a massive housing crisis in the country. It's only actually getting worse. The data that we've seen in recent months is very poor for starts and completions. Partly that's because of the general economic climate. There's a lack of confidence generally, but it's also because of the taxes, you know, the failure of regulation in the planning system. And I really want to see a focus on that, to densify our cities by building more there and freeing up particularly small builders to be able to compete with the big boys and get building again, because we've lost most of our SME building sector over the course of the last 20 years. Lost a huge amount in the early 2000s, and then with the financial crash a lot more went under. A lot of consolidation in the sector, which has placed so much power in the hands of the big construction companies, and that's got to be broken up by liberating the small builders to get on and succeed. So there's a lot of regulatory reform, planning reform that I think we could do if we manage to get into government to really help the sector. And then there may be tax changes as well. You know, I strongly support the idea of scrapping stamp duty. When I was Housing Secretary with Rishi Sunak, we got rid of stamp duty during the pandemic just for a short period. And it led to a massive boom in the sector. There were more transactions in that year than I think any year on record, to the point where the land registry couldn't even cope with all of the applications that were coming in. That was good for people wanting to move, for social mobility, for labour mobility, but it was really, really good for tradespeople, decorators, plumbers, carpenters, kitchen fitters, you name it, because it led to a massive boom in transactions. And that's what you need in the economy. The real economy depends so much on construction, house building and home improvement that it should be prioritised by any government.
Robert Jenrick, thank you very much for joining us on Fix Radio today.
Thanks very much. Good to be here.
Thank you.